Now, I believe he had this plan, sometime after Pentecost. We don't know when he was able to come up with a plan to seek to defeat God, as we see in the book of Revelation, when there will be a great war between Satan and his forces and God and his angelic hosts. But he did come up with a plan. I do not believe God allowed him to implement that plan until the birth of Israel. This is the testimony that we have, that the very first Nephilim mother that was born was 1949. That's the first one that I know of that we are working with as a Grand Dame, Constantina O'Collins. And there's a template in her. So the question again would be, why would Satan target Christian women to produce the final last days species of Nephilim hybrids? In other words, what actually takes place in these women that were selected because of their bloodline, and then at conception there are conception rituals. Satan begins his process of transformation. He's able to overlay himself into their lives, laminate himself through trauma, and somehow integrate himself spiritually with these people so that they are being prepared. I'm talking about these people, these women. They're being prepared at age 13, when Satan comes into them, as there is reported, in his throne. He brings in his very throne that comes in to these people, not where that spirit is joined to the Lord, but he penetrates through trauma right as far as he can and captures as much as he can of that person's human spirit. Remember, the human spirit is capable of being defiled. Even though it's born again, it can be defiled according to 2 Corinthians 7:1. Therefore, the human spirit is also capable of sanctification, 1 Thessalonians 5:23. And so, although he cannot come into that domain where the spirit is joined to the Lord at new birth, he goes as far as he can as a thief, and he steals, siphons off, leeches off that which is a representation of the image of God. Then he having captured that, and this is also corporately, he now has the spiritual stuff, if you will, the spiritual assets to now create the image of the beast and create that which, when the person is age 13, they can now conceive and give birth to a whole new hybrid race. Now, what's different in this third and final Nephilim hybrids is that the goal is not giantism, although those that are unbelievers, they can produce the reptilian, the grays, these that are not represent perfect man. But because when a person is a Christian, they have that image of God. The unbeliever doesn't have that. Satan wants to have Christians. He desires to have Christians because it's only from Christians that he can take a blueprint and create a template for his new humanity. He does it as a thief, John 10:10. Okay, so this is mentioned by the ladies as we have done an interview, in the last couple of days, and they describe what takes place at new birth, and how that capturing comes in. I mean, the adversary comes in and is able to sequester that through trauma and dissociation, and even though that which is joined to the Lord, 1 Corinthians 6 verse 17, he will sequester aspects of the human spirit to create a false trinity, Revelation 16, I think verse 13, so that the human spirit is now interfaced with that which represents the black trinity, and then at age 13, Satan has a position in place through trauma and through conditioning, through generational sin, at the conception, to come in and produce a unique kind of hybrid that will also represent the image of the beast, as we see in Revelation 13, verses 14 to 15, where man will actually create an image of the beast, and that image will appear as a superior specimen of mankind than anything that's in existence today. So many people will take that with the promise that they will not die, they shall live forever, and they shall be like God, the original lie in the garden. So what I would like to do, if we could just move into the second phase of, or I should say the second part of this interview, where we discuss this message that I just gave, which I gave to the ladies, and when we were together a couple days ago, then I wanted them to respond and describe what happened to them when they conceived at age 13 to produce a hybrid offspring. Now, sometimes there's a little noise in the background because of the microphone. I'm passing it from person to person, so you will hear that from time to time. And I couldn't avoid that, but you'll be able to hear this. You'll be able to hear their response to this message that you just heard, and you'll be able to hear from their own mouths, their own testimony of what this means to them and how they understand this generation as being unique. That the hybrids that are being born today are the same manner as in Genesis 6. That is the result of fornication. Only now Satan is involved, and the offspring is unique. It is the prototype of Homo noeticus. So, Georgianne, do you want to switch over to part 2? And
yes.
Would that be all right to do that now?
Yes, we will move to part 2 of SRA Nephilim Mother Update, part 6B. We'll move now. Hello everybody, this is Georgianne Hughes, and this is The Bite Show, and we're very blessed to have Douglas Riggs with us. This is part B of SRA Nephilim Mother Update, and it is the 31st of May. Okay, Douglas, you can get started.
Okay, this is, as I mentioned, the close of the part A of this update, that I gave this message to the saints as we gathered together earlier this week, and wanted them to have an opportunity to give us, from their own experience, when they heard this message, how does this line up with what they've experienced as Christians, why they were targeted as Christians to be Nephilim mothers. Because there are hybrid offspring out there that, just like in Genesis 6:2, the Watchers took women to whoever they chose.
Yes.
But in this generation, he's selecting Christians as well. In other words, it doesn't mean he's not targeting unbelievers, but in order to have the quality of hybrid that it can infiltrate the human race and actually look superior to who we are now in our unglorified state, he had to come up with a plan that would seek to trump God and to create a counterfeit to that new species humanity that believers become at new birth. And so he cannot corrupt that image, but he can capture it. So we're going to begin with, I believe it's either Sally or Jennifer Diane. There'll be a little bit of transition where I'm talking there, and then I'm asking the question, why were you selected as a believer? So just be patient while this comes up, and we will begin the interview.
Okay.
You have described that at new birth there's something that happens, that the human spirit is more elastic, and with an unbeliever, Satan cannot do this because it would kill them, whereas in Genesis 6 they didn't die, to produce hybrids there. But to create the kind of hybrid that he is creating now requires him to capture something that involves the new birth processes we looked at. Can you just give us your take, and then anyone? I know Sally and I have discussed this in the past, and I can't remember if we've talked about this with some of you others. But could you just comment on that, what you understand?
Okay. Basically, Doug explained it really well already, but from just in doing the work, I was able to see how at the point of new birth, then so when you're born, there's that death, that deadness and trespasses and sin, and it's the image of Adam, basically. And so at new birth, then, when if Christ comes in, then it's like the spirit becomes alive again. And so in order for Satan to create his counterfeit and his challenge to who Jesus Christ is, then he wants to have the, quote, perfect Nephilim that it's his challenge, essentially. And so it's not so much that that someone who's not a Christian would necessarily die if they just wouldn't have a perfect Nephilim. They can't, because there isn't that image of God that Satan can tap into, and it's like at new birth, then he starts sequestering it off. So then at the point of conception, he can come as close as he can and capture that image and it's almost like he takes takes a picture of it, or makes it like part of the DNA of this new Nephilim to have this perfect one. But it is a counterfeit, and he's using that image of God to do it, which you can't do in non-Christians. And so also in a way that it differs from Genesis is that, at least I don't think it's mentioned in Genesis, that Satan is actually involved now. And that's where I think that a non-Christian would probably die, is to have a connection with Satan. Whereas Christians, there's that where the Lord really does take it so that you don't die. Anyway, I hope that made sense.
Anyone else? Anyone else have any comments on?
I would concur with what Jennifer Diane said. This is Sally, and I would just add that we began this work in 1990 and began very early on in the early 90s, saw that I came to know Jesus Christ at age, at a very, very, very young age, and it's almost as if the cult precipitated it and sealed it at age 2, and then began to see that part of that reason was because of the image. Everything is centered around the image. As man is created in the image of God, therefore Satan can only steal what God has done. And so he wanted to produce his new man and his perfect man. And so as the new birth comes in, as was already explained theologically, then after the new birth, then that is dissociated, and it is, in a sense, it is pulled out to where the person has no memory of even being a Christian at such an early age. And then Satan's new man is built upon that, Homo noeticus. And it is an Adam-Kadmon. In me, it was an Adam-Kadmon type structure, so that there is that perfect new man of Satan and his corporate way. And the only way that he could do that is basing that, anchoring that on a Christian, because we are related to one another in a corporate manner, and there were scriptures in Corinthians, that were members of one another. Many, many scriptures that support that. So in order to become, Satan's network, then he links and bases it on not only the image of God, but also comes in and wants to provide that network so that we're corporately related in a satanic oneness, in a satanic union. And so it's as if he overlays or undermines that which God has done. So, there are scriptures also about the image of the beast. Well, he takes God's image, and then in a sense he has stolen that from Christians, an